He said, I need you to have a personality. I need you to have an identity so that when you walk into a room, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. You could be wearing a plain white t-shirt, but your work talks so much more than that. If Hermes and Louis Vuitton can glorify their craftsmanship of their country, and I was like, we as a country, we as the owners and the custodians of this trade are so ashamed and don't have trust in it, and then hence we are not promoting it and speaking to people about it. How can we expect the consumers to have it? She said they can be better than you, they can be worse than you, but they can never be you.
Nice
Right?
one.
Just find who you are.
Yeah.
And the day you find who you are, you won the game.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask a massive favor of you guys. At the moment, we're putting a big priority on growing our YouTube channel. So if you aren't already subscribed to us there, if you could head over to YouTube, type in the Quest for Success podcast, or just click the link down in the show notes below, head over to our channel and subscribe to us there. You'll get access to all of our video interviews that we do with our guests. And it will do us a massive favor because it will help us grow the show, which means we can get on bigger and better guests for you guys. And with that, back to the episode. All right, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast, and thanks so much for tuning in once again. Today on the show, we are incredibly privileged to be joined by Palak Shah, who is the CEO of Ekaya Banaras, which is, from my research, it is the like a fashion brand bringing a modern twist to a very traditional garment in India, the sari.
So we had very interesting guests in our show, and this is our very first fashion designer actually joining us. And I had the privilege of studying with Palak at Harvard Business School. And thank you, Palak, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. And I love your research that you've done a little bit. Uh, I mean, it's really nice. Thank you for having me.
So, Palak, this conversation is all about success. And so we need to start with something very fundamental. And that is, what does success actually mean to you?
Uh, I think, just 2 days ago, me and my husband were pacing up and down our house, and we were just discussing what does success mean to both of us. And for him, of course, it's more about, I think, the numbers and the game and sort of as the quantum of things. But I think for me, success is, I think, making an impact. And for me, it's about bringing about a revolutionary shift in the way people view the sari. So the day I have, your girlfriend or, Jam's wife or anyone else wearing sari like they're wearing this tank top is the day I will be successful. So I think it's more about it's more about a revolution. It's more about a whole like mind shift for me, I think, more than the numbers, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's like creating like a culture shift or a perception shift
Correct,
around
correct,
something which is like so important to your
correct,
culture or
correct.
traditional in your culture. Yeah.
I think it's about creating a shift in the way people have been viewing something for many, many years. It's almost like when women suddenly chose a different role in life. Now, as in like, how do you shift the entire generation and entire world's perspective on how do you sort of view women as not just bread earn like as like just homemakers, but now as bread earners as well. So almost that kind of a shift. I mean, almost like a national, international, almost like a worldwide shift on how do you sort of see a sari, not just as an occasion where, and for Indians only, but almost like everyone around the world is like, oh, that's a cool garment and I want to wear that.
I love that. And I'm really excited to get into that kind of that shift and how you create that. But before we dive into that, we really need to understand your context and understand the woman who's sitting in front of us today. And to do that, we need to go back to your early life. And can you give us a little bit of like an insight into, where you grew up and your kind of early childhood and how you think it's shaped who you've become today?
Okay. So I was born in a really small town in India called Varanasi. Banaras, also called Banaras. Banaras is the oldest living city in India. It's also the oldest living inhabited city in the whole of India, right? So it's really old and it's sort of steeped in culture. And also Banaras is the hub for where saris are made in India. And that's the only place where saris of any kind and every kind are made. So it's really special, the whole place in general, right? My family, unfortunately, was not as open and modern as we are at this point of time. We were a small town Gujarati family from Banaras where women never worked. Where my dad sort of used to kind of go to work every day. Women were staying at home. They were kind of earning, I mean, a very usual, typical Indian family. And, funny enough, we hadn't even seen what outside of India looked like up until the early 2000s, right? So up until when I was 9 years old. So like I hadn't seen anything of that. Um, but like I've always been very close to my dad since I was very little. So I've always assisted him to go to work every single time he used to go to work. So as a little child, I've always just been kind of like a spectator to what he does. And my dad's been dealing with saris and like making saris and making creations since like 130 years. Like it's my family business. And we're actually wholesalers. So we manufacture and we sell. We manufacture and we sell. So we never had a retail outlet. We never had a brand. Cut short to my class 11th, when I was in grade 11, I was actually sent to a boarding school when I was in grade 4. So I was sent out,
Okay.
I was living out, and I was also sent to a very, very conventional girls' boarding school because the family's like, you know what, we cannot send you to a co-ed school because, there are boys there, and this typical, you know,
Too much
traditional family.
distraction.
Exactly, as like traditional families, right? Because they're scared. And so I was in grade 11 and I'm in a boarding school, and I had shifted my boarding school, and I was in this public boarding school where everyone was like applying to USC and King's College London, and they were applying to NYU. And here I was, I'm like, I wasn't even allowed to like get out. And I literally wrote my dad a 12-page letter at that age, as in a 12-page hate letter, jam, if I may, saying about telling me about how have you ruined my life, and everyone's going out and everyone is doing what they want to, but you're not allowing me to. Why do you want me to have wings when you want to chop it off? Like the whole emotional letter I'd given. And my dad is sitting there weeping and weeping and weeping, like, what have I created? Like, what the hell's going on? And also like a little bit of backstory, since me and my dad were really close when we were little, like when I still am very close to him. He used to always tell me saying that I see you as the next Indra Nooyi of the world, because he wanted me to be independent. He wanted me to sort of like, I think, earn my own money. He never wanted me to beg in front of a man to earn money. And that's been his very fundamental thought process since I've been little. So cut short to my this letter, and then I've written, I was like, you want me to be Indra Nooyi, but you think Indra Nooyi was in India, da 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 da. So then we had like about 2 months left, till my board exams, until the application could go. And of course, there was no chance for me to do my GMAT and to do my SATs, sorry, back in the day. So we were like, you know what, we'll send you to London. Also in London, my dad had sort of put like a little bit of a clause saying that if you get above 95%, you stay in India, because there's very good schools in India. But if you get less than 95%, I can only send you to King's College if you get it. Otherwise, you're in India, like you're not going out. And as luck would have it, Jam, I got a 94.5. I
Oh.
said, I'm out of here. So I stepped out. And to be honest, I never had a bone of entrepreneurship in me. And I just kind of, as dad had been feeding that I want you to be the next Indra Nooyi, but I was like, you know what? I was like, I belong to a traditional Gujarati family. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a nice husband. I was partying my way out in London. I was at King's College London, the typical usual thing. Then my dad got a heart attack in 2011.
Mm.
And my dad had a dream of building building a retail outlet for what he did. And my dad was always like, you know what, people like are not letting me be creative. I want to build an outlet for what I do, and I want to showcase the true potential of Banarasi saris to everyone. Like, what all is possible. And I was, I think, on my second year of college, and my dad had sort of wanted to start Ekaya in 2011. And because of his heart attack, it kind of got pushed to a year later.
Mm.
And my dad was also became a little slow in working, but he was always like back to action. in 2012, when I graduated, my dad's like, "Hey, why don't you come back to India? You've been out for almost what, 18 years back then. Why don't you come and stay with us? It's been a while, da da da, whatever." So I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm like, I'll see. And Papa's like, why don't you come join me for a bit? And I, by the way, had almost bagged the job in the UK. So I was like, okay, fine. I
Hmm.
have 2, 3 months to kind of see whether I like it or not. Let me come back. And the true motive for my dad for me to bring me back was to get me married. True story. My dad's like, you know what? We'll get her back. We'll find her a suitable boy, and she'll get married because 21 is a great age to get married, and like we'll do that. Now I come back to India, and I joined my dad for about 2, 3 months, trying to learn the whole, the trick of the trade and to how it works. And me and my dad are at loggerheads. And I was like, I'm gonna kill you, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. And I was like, I was literally like, you know what? I was like, you know what? I don't want to work with you anymore. I'm going to Delhi. I will take care of Ekaya. Right now, like Dylan, like literally a 21-year-old girl. Like when I see 21-year-old kids now, I'm just like, what the hell was I doing at 21? Like, how the hell did you have so much guts to do what you did? I packed my bags. I left as in for Delhi from Banaras. By the way, Delhi back then was the most dangerous city, you know, because you had all these news coming in.
Hmm.
Single girl, 21-year-old, packed her bags, left for Delhi, and I was like, Papa, I will take care of Ikaya. And my dad also, how small town, you're just like, okay, fine, go, we'll see. And then as I had a driver and a maid, uh, I entered Ekaya and it was done up and everything was. My dad had sort of set the tone. My dad
Hmm.
had set the brick and mortar place for it. And I enter and there are only my dad's employees there, right? Because my dad's hired them and they're all from there. And for everything, they were like, "Oh, do you want to ask Papa, whether this is okay? Do you want to ask Dad if this is okay?" And, this little 21-year-old twat I'd call myself, I told my dad, I was like, either they stay or I stay. I was like, they don't let me work. So then
Yeah.
I ended up hiring a whole team, guys, like a whole team at 21-year-old. That were my team, and they've still stuck around with me. It's been 13 years today. From A to Z, I've interviewed everyone I hired. And I think and Ikaya started growing, right? And I remember saying I remember my mom telling me, she's like, oh, Ikaya is growing because of dad. And Ikaya is growing because of dad's, setup that he has in Banaras. And my uncle said, oh, marketing and growth and strategies, all whatever. The reason why you have sales is because we are there for you.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Jam, sometimes you just need that little thing, and you're like, you know what? Watch me do it. And I
Yeah.
think I just went on this little kind of a bender, I'd like to say, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to show you all that I've built this brand. And
Yeah.
then kind of came about me sort of working relentlessly and overnight. And Dylan, like literally, like 21, like 22, 23-year-old girl, I used to go out and I used to get drunk because I was also in that phase, right? I was partying and like going crazy. And I remember this one day I'd come to work, jam, hungover, and I had a very transparent cabin. I had a very tiny, tiny, tiny little room, and I just passed out. And everyone saw me, and I was like, "How can they see me run the business and pass out? Like, what the hell's going on?" Change that whole narrative, and like it just became a quest to kind of prove that I've done
You
it,
can do
and
it. Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
and that it's me. And the first year we broke even. The second year we sort of like opened another branch in Ahmedabad. The third year we kind of like we were growing at a very good pace. And then I kind of like I think in 2014, 15, I'd like to say 2, 3 years after the running the business, I started feeling that I'm going back to my dad's way of working, which is a very traditional way of working. And I was like, what if I have studied so much, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to continue going back to the way my dad works. And not that my dad works in a different way, just that I thought that the saris can go in a different way. And I think I fell in love with the way saris are. I just love them. And I was like, what if I can create an impact and I can run the business differently and I think it was not a quest against my father ever. It was just a quest to show that I can do it. And I have it in me to run a business and to prove to them that, listen, it's my efforts also that are kind of showing results. So in 2015, I was like, you know what? I want to go study. I was like, I want to do my MBA for a year so that I can do better and I can learn newer ways of running the business. So I left for Boston at that point of time. I said I went to
Uh-huh.
Babson, and there again I was. Then again I was, trying to you know, run the business from there. I had hired somebody. My dad was interfering. When my dad was trying to take the business back to traditional ways of working, and I was fighting. And then again, alas, it came up again. Come back, and we want to get you married. And then again, another letter was written to my dad saying, "How can you do this to me?" And then, of course, we came back, and then, of course, Hyderabad opened, Bombay opened, another store in Delhi opened. Forbes, it's funny, Dylan, because as in I was rejected for Forbes India 30 and the 30, and I got Forbes Asia 30 and the 30. And then
Wow.
India was like, so then India was like, you know what, as like, we want you on the list too. And I mean, it's just been a beautiful journey, one thing to the other, to the other, to the other. And then, you look back at it and you're just like, how the hell did I manage? And how
Yeah.
the hell did you do it? And I mean, I'll talk more about it, like, as I keep on talking, but it's been a beautiful.
No, no, no. Continue. We want to listen.
No, so I mean, like, it's been about 13 years for me right now, and we have 5 stores, and we have now a strength directly under me, 150 people.
Nice.
And not just artisans, we work with almost over 10,000 artisans,
Wow.
but 150 people under me. And so much has changed, I feel like, the way the sort of the business started off as, to the way business was going, to the way business is now. So much Harvard has taught me, Jam. I've professionalized my whole company. I have like a CEO, I have a retail head, I have a proper HR, I have a consultant on board. We
Nice.
have we have all these increment systems that we've learned at Harvard. And like, it's really different because I mean, like, while it may not feel special to many people because they're like, oh, every business has it, but because sari sales in India and the way sari trade has always been so traditional and so much like handicraft trade, where there were no systems, there were no sort of structure, there was no accountability, there was no sort of like method to the madness. That when I do it, it feels like such a feat, right? Because you're genuinely you're giving hope to people that all handicrafts business can transform and can become a real business. And it can sort of move from a mom and pop shop to
Yep.
being run as a professionally run multinational business.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to always be because, it's something your grandmother wore, and it's something, it's almost like jewelry trade in India, right? And I don't know, I mean, like, Jam, have you guys been to India, Dylan?
I
Yeah.
haven't been.
I've been to India and I went for Sari shopping as well.
You know how it is, like, how Jam, like, is like sari shopping
Yeah.
in India, and like, it's a very traditional way.
Yes.
It's not done. And I've always felt like, I mean, it's been it's been one of the mission like statements for Ekaya, saying that if Hermes and Louis Vuitton can glorify their craftsmanship of their country, your Patek, like, people are crazy after Patek because they've glorified the craftsmanship of their country. My craftsmanship is better than yours because my guys are actually sitting 6, 7 months overnight, over and over
Hmm.
again, weaving. Like, literally, Dylan, to weave this much of a sari takes 30 days,
Wow.
Wow.
right? And like, maybe your Birkin bag is made in 5 days, but they just sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
glorify it and they show it and they sort of, and that's where you buy into it. And I was like, we as a country, we as the owners and the custodians of this trade are so ashamed and don't have trust in it, and then hence we are not promoting it and speaking to people about it. How can we expect the consumers to have it?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
anyway.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack in this story that you've got unfurled. But I want to go back to, I think, a core point, which is kind of this unwavering self confidence that you had. You said as 21, uh, most people wouldn't even dream about doing the stuff that you did. I want to understand, A, where do you think that self confidence came from? And B, do you think self confidence is something that can be taught, or is it an innate trait?
Okay, I'll tell you, I've never been confident, by the way. Because I was the only child. I mean, like, back then, right? Because now I have siblings, right? But back then, I mean, I was the oldest in the
Mm.
family, so I've been overly pampered. Um, I also kind of lost my mom when I was really little, so I've been raised by my dad and his 4 brothers, and then my dad
Oh,
remarried. Then as in now, I have a beautiful, beautiful mother as well, and I have 2 siblings, and it's really incredible. But like, I've been raised by 5 boys, right? I've been raised by 5 men.
yeah.
So I kind of have traits of every one of them. And it's really funny, like one would expect me to be like this fierce and this, this gutsy. And now that as the person that I am at this point of time, but back then, because I was raised by five men, I couldn't even cross the road because they pampered me to death.
Protective.
They were so protective. They're like, no, 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 don't do that. No, 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 you can't wear this skirt. You can't do that, da, 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 right? And also went to a boarding school, Dylan, which was a very traditional Indian
Yeah.
boarding school. And it was an all girls school. We weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to talk on the phone. We were allowed 3 minutes to talk to our parents the whole month, by the way. It was really,
Wow.
really strict. Then I think the shift that happened was I moved schools in when I was in grade 10. I left school and I went to this public boarding school. And in that period, I met these two girls in my hometown. And these two girls, oh my God, like chaos, I'd like to say chaos and debauchery. And they taught me to, to drink. They taught me to smoke. I was, sort of doing everything that I'm not supposed to do. And it kind of like, I think more than getting me into bad habits, because I'm not a person who can get into a bad habit very quickly. I'm kind of very much on the, I'm a very, I don't have an addictive personality. I have
Yeah.
a very balanced personality, also being the oldest child, right? But I think what they did was they removed the fear out of me. And they said that, you know what, drive that car. Let's go out at 2 a.m. Let's go do this and let's sort of do that. And that kind of gave me some sort of a confidence inside. They're like, oh, it's not all that scary out there. Maybe I can do that. And then I went to a public boarding school, which is very different from a private boarding school. And the public boarding school taught me more because there were girls from all walks of life and with dreams and with something else. Then, of course, even going to London, right? Like I was living all by myself and I had my own experiences. But I think Dylan, I think I was still very reserved. I was quiet. I didn't think I had the confidence because I still remember the nervousness I felt when I walked into my first PR meeting. With like fashion brands, we have our events, right? And you walk into that event, and everyone was dressed to the T, and everyone was, glammed up. And here I was, this girl from a small town, and sure, I went to London, but my roots are small town. And I'll tell you a funny story also, Jam, after this. But you know what? As in when I went to London, I was always sort of put on a very strict budget, and I still am till date, right? And when you're in London, you have people from all these rich families, and you have people from all these, wealthy kids who are just wearing Balenciaga and Prada, like it's like they've bought it, but like actually
Yeah.
daddy's bought them. And I remember, and I mean, all my girlfriends were all on a budget at that point of time. So I had this girl, and oh, by the way, all my girls are doing so well in life. So we were a gang of four girls, and we were all on a budget. And I remember, like, as in we were on a budget of 600 quid back then per month, which kind of included our transportation, our food, our electricity bill. It included our shopping. It included our nightclubs. My dad said, "What you want to do is your 600." And then there was this whole gang from from Delhi, right, who were there buying tables at a club, and they were wearing back then Tory Burch was really, and they were wearing Tory Burch, and I remember I used to go tell my dad, and I used to be like, Dad, they're wearing Tory Burch, and Dad, they get to buy tables at the thing. And my dad actually said something so sweet, which kind of has stuck around with me for it's been almost what 10 years, 12 years. And he said, Beta, he said, he was like, here's 10 lakhs, go buy what you want to get done with it, and never come back to me again. Because remember, people who don't have personalities use brands to cover it up. He said, I need you to have a personality. I need you to have an identity so that when you walk into a room, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. You could be wearing a plain white t-shirt, but your work talks so much more than that. And that has stuck around me for so long. Like literally, like I don't think you'll ever see a logo on me. Yes, I love my luxury because I can afford it at this point in time. But am I going to do it just because, like, I will till date, I don't think I will ever buy something that I don't deserve. I remember all my friends and people younger than me and, kids my sister's age are having Birkin bags and they're having Chanel's. And I literally tell my husband and my dad, I was like, you know what? The day I do this is the day I'll get that. And till the time I don't believe I truly deserve it, I don't think I'm deserving of carrying something that is worth a lot because I need to make that own money. And sure enough, I can earn that. I mean, I earn enough to deserve it. But in my eyes, if I deserve it, is the day I'm going to get it.
Mhm. So, Palak, now you are building a brand, your own, right? In Indian, I know you work with a lot of other, like famous Bollywood superstars, etc., right? So, how do you position? Like, again, to me, it's a very competitive industry, right? The saris. How do you really connect to the luxury area, or like how you position yourself?
I think Jam, it hasn't happened overnight.
Uh-huh.
It's required a lot of no's. It's required a lot of missed opportunities, but I don't look at it as missed opportunities. Like, like through the process when I was growing, many people tend to sort of choose things out of desperation. So let's say, for example, when I was growing, I was very clear that I want to be a luxury brand, that I want to be seen the the Hermes of the country, right? So in my head, I was always like, what would an Hermes do to reach where they have, right? And it's required you to not be present at many places. It's required you to
Yeah.
not walk into many doors. And it's also required you in a situation that, let's say, for example, when sales are low, like even my father for that matter, he'll call me up and be like literally like 10 minutes before talking to you, he called me up saying, I feel like we should offer a discount to people. And I said, no. And he said, why not? And I was like, because I was like, when an Hermes has a dead stock, they will not offer discount. They'll figure out a better strategy to liquidate it rather than affect the branding of the company, right? So it's required a lot of no's, it's required a lot of yeses, a lot of waiting for the right thing to happen at the right time. And I think being in the room with the right people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's say, for example, like when we had Vogue Wedding Show back then in 2012, Vogue Wedding Show was the thing that kind of came about. And all your top designers and all your top jewelers, everyone was there. And I remember we were the only sari brand there in that Vogue Wedding Show, right? But
Wow.
the odd thing was we were placed in the gifting section, right? So which is nice, which is very good for the branding. They were like, oh my God, Ekaya is there, and Ekaya got to be known, whatever. Couple of years later, like cut short to I think 5, 6 years later, I was like, you know what? I'm not coming in if you don't put me next to a designer. But they're like, oh, but you're a sari. But I was like, yeah, but I was like, there are many sari brands selling saris, but I'm giving you a lot more than that. I'm selling you an outfit, I'm selling you an aspiration, I'm selling you the whole look. And I said, well, even Sabyasachi is selling a sari, so is Ekaya. But why is my craft weaker than his craft? Because my craft is actually way more valuable. And I said, I'm like, if you don't put me there, I'm not gonna come there. And sure enough, I stood next to them and I came in. So it's a lot
Wow.
of fighting. It's a lot of believing. It's a lot of saying no. And you know what? To be honest, Jam, had I chosen to go with an X with that position, or had I chosen to go with a brand smaller than a Vogue Wedding Show, maybe they wouldn't have taken me after,
Yeah.
because they'll be like, you know what? Maybe she belongs to that category. But I
Yeah.
let go of that category sale to be, because I was like, you know what? If I'm coming, I'm gonna go. I'm only going in that category.
Mm-hmm. So I guess where I'm going, I wanted to understand, like, more than you're selling a product, you're selling a emotional connection, right? That's what brand is all about, right? And so why women feel like wearing a ikoya, your sari,
You know,
it's more special.
you know, for many years, people have used the weavers as a narrative,
Yep.
right? For many, many years. They're like, oh my God, our weavers' conditions are bad. Oh my God, the weaver is spending 30 days making it. Buy us, buy us, buy us. But I think I'm on a very different trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
I am showcasing the aspiration value of a sari. I'm showing people how sexy you can look wearing that garment. How sort of you can look glam and you can be on trend with that. So if you see Kaya's page versus any other page, Kaya is more about how your daughter will want to look like that,
Yep.
versus, and your wife would want to look like that also, by the way, because now no longer, if in case I tell your wife that, oh my God, no, you're 50, so you wear a covered blouse and you must wear in a traditional way, or I'm just going to be like, no, I'm going to wear what my daughter's wearing because I want to look like her friend. I want to look like closer to her age rather than look like someone like a mother, right? Ikea has become almost like the Pinterest for how saris can look and how chic and sexy and beautiful and on trend and how international a sari can look. And that's where I'm different from anybody else
Yep.
who's doing it. Because you know what? Also, one second is that I believe that is the truth.
Yep.
And that is the core point of it because nobody else believes a sari can be sexy. I believe it. I own it. I wear it. And whenever I walk into a room, it shows that the sari is the sexiest garment there is.
And I wanna touch on that point because scrolling through the Instagram page, there's some incredible products that you guys are doing, and it's like you're wearing them in different ways to the traditional sari as well. And I want to go to the point about you're modernizing quite an old tradition.
Uh-huh.
Did you face any pushback
From my
in
own
that?
family, from my own family, from my own dad.
Really?
My dad is just like, but this is not how it's supposed to be worn. I was like, who defines it? I was like, it's a piece of fabric. I said, I'm like, I'll wear it the way I want to. And I think more than anything, it began with me doing it, right? I didn't put it onto the page immediately, right? Because I was like, I don't know how it's going to be taken, right? And eventually, as people started taking onto my page and my draping style, and it's really cute, Dylan, because there are girls who tag me when they put the sari around the neck and put a belt on. And they were, this is a Palak drape. And that's when I was like, I was like, and also I'll tell you, it's really funny because I think every brand needs to find their voice. And I found my voice after 13 years. I'd like to say, I didn't find my voice in the beginning. It was a lot of trial, error, trial, error, trial, error, because I also tried to be somebody I wasn't. I tried to be other brands to see what was working for them, and I forgot what is working for me. And the minute I realized that what I have is what nobody has is that style, and it's that feeling that you can truly wear the sari in any way that you want to, it started clicking because that's mine and that's nobody's.
Yeah.
So Palak, how do you redefine? Like, how do you create this modern fashion brand, but still keeping that tradition going?
I think I just have fun with it, Jam. I don't think I have a strategy for it. Like truly, like every single time I put a sari in my hand, I let it speak to me. And I
Yeah,
let it
yeah,
sort of just, I drape it around my body. I see how I'm feeling that day because, it's truly a piece of fabric, right? It has
yeah,
no structure, it has no rules, it has no definition. You drape it the way you want to, literally.
yeah,
And you don't have to make the pleats if you don't want to make the pleats. You don't have
yeah.
to drape it like this, like up until now, okay, sure, we've decided that you've got to put it on your left shoulder. But what if I put it on my right?
Absolutely,
Who's
yeah,
gonna walk in and who's gonna tell me anything? What if I put it
yeah,
on my neck? What if I just put it on my waist? Like who defines all these things? And nobody
yeah, yeah,
defines
yeah,
it. And that is
yeah,
the
yeah,
beauty of the sari, right? And like, and every single time I wear it, I'll walk into my closet and I'll be like, maybe I put a jacket on with it. And maybe I
yeah.
just wear like a waist belt, or maybe I do something, and that's is truly what makes me the happiest.
So in a way, you're like an artist, right? You're
I'm
creating
an artist.
things. Yeah, yeah. And you're trying new things and just testing, like. But how important to have that storytelling ability when you're doing that?
I feel like anything that is authentic and anything that truly comes from within you does not need storytelling to be told because people can sense it. People can understand it through your imagery, right? I feel like the day I try, and like I've always told people, right? I said, be true to who you are, figure out what works for you. It's like Jam, let's say example, now you see Brad Pitt wearing shorts and wearing a blazer. And you think, oh my God, it looks good on Brad Pitt, I will put it on myself. And then suddenly
Yeah,
you're feeling very uncomfortable because your body language is uncomfortable. You're pulling this jacket and you're walking in because you're not sure. The product's
yeah,
looking horrible on you.
yeah,
But at the same time, when you wear colorful pants and that is truly you, right? And you walk in thinking you're looking like $1 million, and you truly are looking like $1 million because the confidence shines through. Similarly with the sari, it's like the story is mine. I've owned it and I truly
Yeah.
believe in it and I truly live it every day. And like, even if somebody saw me at a party and like my mom and I have this argument all the time, and she's like, again, you're in a sari? And I was like, because I'm comfortable in a sari. And
Yeah.
one can sense it, right? So I don't think that storytelling needs to be laid out in the most literal sense, but people can sense it, people can smell it,
Mm.
people can absorb it. The energy is there, and that makes such a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
And in terms of building the brand, you said you've done it with this team. And I want to go to team culture because I know it's, at least for me, it's one thing that separates you. Rather than having the flash corner office, you like to be with your team and, interact with them and build that creativity. What does team culture mean to you and how are you trying to build it in the organization?
When I started Dylan, I didn't know what team culture was, right? Because
Mm.
I built it according to what I knew. I was 21 years old. I didn't know jack shit. Like org structure, I didn't know anything, right? So I've always I began with a team, humble team of like 10 people. Then it kind of 20, 30, 40, right? Um, we've always operated like a family. And I have an open door policy, like literally, and I can tell you, I think what sets me apart from everyone else is that I know exactly what is going on in my team's lives, not just at work. Sure, I may not know the numbers and I may not sort of know, okay, how much sale you've done, what's your AUR and what's your average ticket price and what's your conversion, all that I know. But like now I've started tracking it. But it kind of it always comes down to my employees' well-being. I know what my manager is going through. It is dad's okay, dad's not okay, what his state of mind is, what's going on. I'm always checking in. They feel connected to me, right? And it's because they feel connected to me, they will give up their life for the company. Like I've had people like literally stay up till 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, back to back, back to back, back to back, and they literally be like, you know what, we're here for you. And violet culture went on for many, many years. It went on for almost 10, 11 years, I'd like to say. It has its pros and its cons, right? The pros become like they are giving up their life for the company, but cons is because I'm also not on their head because I'm so close to them. I'm not at the head to kind of
Mm-hmm.
fight for numbers and fight for targets and achievements and put them on the treadmill and be like, you know what, it's time to run. And they'll be like, no, but you don't want to run. And I'll be like, okay, no, I know, I understand, don't run. So when I went to Harvard is when I started implementing a lot of checks and measures. It was a lot of, I hired a retail head, I hired a consultant, and it shook everyone. It shook everyone to the extent that I've had people leave. I've had people go like, they're like, we can't. And like since the past 2 years, it's been one of the most tumultuous years I've had because it's kind of making me question everything that I'm doing. It's making me question that am I doing the right thing, even changing the narrative or the way the company is run, or and many of my old team members have come seeing that the soul of the brand has left, and now we have a layer between you and the people. Now, what is right, what's wrong, right? Sure, we grew by 25% last year. Like nobody in the country grew by that amount, but also I lost my employees. I also lost the soul a little bit, right? Now, what is wrong? What is right? But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to balance it out as much as I can. I'm still available for my team. I'll still pick up the call. I'll still figure out what's going on. I'll still make them feel like, okay, fine, you don't have to go crazy. We're not killing you over targets. But it's always a journey, right? It's always like,
Yeah.
what's right? What's wrong? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's no such a thing called, yeah, you just go with the flow, right? And try your best. So, I want to understand a little bit more about your brand and how you are growing it. So I know you mentioned Brad Pitt, and I know you're associated with or dressing many Indian famous movie stars, celebrities. Who are the probably the most famous person that you dressed?
Everyone. I've been very fortunate, like from Aishwarya Rai to Sonam Kapoor to international. I've had the First Lady of Korea being dressed up.
Wow.
I've had touch wood, we've got a lot of love, um, and that's also something that like it's more like a pull strategy rather than a push strategy
Okay.
because year on year. Like earlier, as in a lot of my campaigns used to be very artistic. It used to be very different. It never sort of showed people how you can look. It showed the aspiration. It sort of showed the arty side of things. And then I came to the conclusion that I was like, you know what? I want people to look at my campaigns and be like, that's exactly how I want to walk out of my house. And that kind of like made a lot of celebrities wear and like kind of play with the sari and like you name it, everyone's worn it in the country, all the top, your Aishwarya Rai, Dia Mirza, Kareena Kapoor, um, Sonam Kapoor, Bhumi Petnikar, uh, anyone that you can imagine.
Amazing.
And have you used collaboration as a growth strategy, like
Yes.
collaborating with these? Yeah, can you explain
No,
like how
so
you've
you know
gone about that?
one of the biggest growth strategy for me was collaborations actually, and I still collaborate a lot, by the way. I think one of the biggest things that worked for me in the beginning was that I collaborated with designers. So I collaborate with people who have never worked with Indian textiles before. And the idea of wanting to work with people who've never worked with them before was to see the endless possibilities that can come through. Right. So now if I collaborate with a jam, he does not know the limitations of Banarasi textiles. So he'll come up with me like, Palak, I saw this really beautiful checkered thing on this mural on this New York street. Do you think we can make it on a sari? And maybe I can't, maybe I can't, but it pushes me to try if I can. And the minute I try it, I'm able to create something that nobody else has ever done it.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
need that
where,
outside perspective.
exactly. And I also need that push and that challenge for people to be like, can you make it? And I'll be like, what, let me try. And I don't know whether I can. And maybe if I can, but if I can't, maybe I'll land up somewhere close to it. But I at least land up in a way that nobody else has created anything in this textiles industry before.
What's one of your highlights in the career so far doing this?
Actually, my highlight was so I mean, it's followed by a funny story. But when I was in Boston, this French lady came to my brand manager back then, and she said, we represent the Federation of Made to Measure France, and we'd like to use your fabrics for making French wedding gowns. And like you have all these people coming in, and you're like, yeah, whatever. And I said, okay, worth chatting, let's see. And this kind of led to a really big show in Paris at next to the Ritz Carlton, next to in the
Wow.
Saint in La Fabou area, sorry, in Paris, which is right next to the Hermes showroom. And I had a fashion presentation of Ekaya, and our fabrics were used in French wedding gowns with laces and with leather, and I was proudly wearing a sari in Paris, and I was repping my country. And I remember again, Jam, I fought. I said, if it's not Ikaya X Federation, whatever, I am not doing it. I said, I'm not a fabric supplier. I'm an equal partner because I'm making the fabric for you. And the way the fabric looks is an integral part to the way the garment looks. So I'm not doing it. And I remember that day, and I'm sitting in Paris and I'm looking my creations there in formal dresses. Me and my dad were there, and I'm wearing a sari and I'm smiling. And I was like, oh my God, I said, I reached here, and I didn't reach in the Indian community of Paris. I've reached in a global community of Paris. And I'm sitting right next to the Hermes showroom and presenting my clothes. And it was really funny because then I had my marketing manager come in with me that time, and we're crossing the Eiffel Tower, and I was like, Indira, what's next? I was like, now let's try for 1 million followers. And she literally gave me her wrist, and she's like, here, suck the remaining blood that I have in my body right now.
Amazing.
And we just giggled and we giggled. But it was a beautiful, beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about collaboration. Like if you had the chance to with collaborate with any brand or any person, who would you
Ah,
choose?
I definitely want to collaborate with, like, I mean, I'd like to say a Bottega Veneta, or, I want one of those international ones to kind of come in and to showcase how can you use a Banarsi fabric into bags and accessories and dresses and real high fashion, because that's a skill I don't currently have. maybe I do. After 2 years, you never know. I might just get into that. But to really kind of showcase how, like, I want the international top fashion, like a Prada or a Miu Miu or
Yeah.
someone to come in and to be like, you know what, we want to work with you and we want to sort of do a collaboration with you. And
Amazing.
Jam, I believe it will happen.
Yeah, it will happen. I'm sure they will listen to this podcast and will contact you.
Yeah.
See, you said you don't think you have that kind of self-confidence, but you have this self-belief which like it rings true throughout pretty much everything you're saying. I want to know where that comes from because to me that underpins all the success that you've had. Is
You
this
know, now I have self-confidence. Now I do. I have a lot of self-confidence. I do, and I agree with you. I have the self-belief, which I think is my USP. Uh, I don't know where it comes from, but I truly believe I can. Like, to be honest, like I was talking to somebody and I was like, you know what? I want my products to be on Moda Brandy. And they were like, why would they? And I was like, it will. I said, you watch it, it will happen. And I don't know how, when, what, where. Um, you call it some people call it manifestation, some people call it self-belief. I don't know, Dylan. I truly believe I can. And because I think I have the faith in my product, I have the faith because I think it's I think it's love for what you do.
Yep.
And I think it's truly believing that what you see in front of you is possible to be to see. I mean, like you see the light of it. You have confidence, like the way you have confidence in your child, right? You're like, my child will go to Harvard. I don't know how, when, where my child will go to Harvard. I may not have confidence in every spheres in my life. I may not have confidence that I can make it. I can become the fittest human being, or I can have six-pack abs. I don't have confidence in that at all because I know my actions don't relate to that at all. Like I just will do everything unhealthy there is. But I do believe that Ekaya truly will be one of the biggest brands in the world. And I do believe that I will be at Moda Operandi and I will collaborate with a Bottega Veneta or a Prada or a Miu Miu. I don't know when, what, where, when, how. But to be honest, life has led me here so far.
yeah.
Yep.
And I have faith that it will. Because I'm also working
Yeah.
towards it, right? I'm not sitting on my ass and I'm not just waiting for the magic to happen. No, I'm working towards it. I'm creating collection on collection. I'm changing the way saris are happening, but I'm having a lot of fun while doing it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I love that. I love that mindset. And in 2018, you were named Woman of the Decade.
Wow.
And I want to know how you view your kind of role as a role model to other, especially or not just entrepreneurs, but especially young women in India. Like how do you perceive that?
I mean, it's honestly, I don't think I'm a role model, but yes, I am. I know to many people because many girls like come up to me and they're like, "Oh my God, we love what you do," and like it's really sweet because there are many times I've been stopped and they'll be like, "Are you Palak? And can you take a picture?" And in my head, I was like, "Do people know me?" I was like, "I'm such a goofball." I said, like internally, you don't have the kind of thing, but it's really nice. But I also like, I think the beauty of it is that I'm just an ordinary girl from honestly the background that most of these girls come from, right? I come from a small family. I come from a small town. In fact, I was not given half the kind of a privilege that most of the girls were given, right? And what you make out of it is totally up to you. Like you decided, and I've decided my fate. And up until now, like I truly believe that I am a simple girl living a simple life. You'll see me traveling in the simplest of forms. I live a very simple life. Of course, like I have the means to it. I enjoy my luxuries, and I'm not going to deny that I don't enjoy my luxuries. But at the same time, like we're all that it is possible for people to do so, right? And if you truly believe in it, and if you truly try and fight the system sometimes, and honestly, Dylan, I've not even tried to fight the system, and I've been blessed with a very supportive father. I've been blessed with a very supportive family who has pushed me and told me that you can become the next Indra Nooyi of the world. And I believe I can, and it's just about that, I think.
And so how important do you think environment is then?
Very, very important. Very, very important. Because I'll tell you why is that my dad, my, as in, I mean, I belong to a joint family, right? So when I started the business, my dad had full faith in me. And I don't know where his faith came from. My granddad let he gave his whole business to a 21-year-old girl. I don't know what he saw in me. My uncles did not question until date. I'll tell you, Jam. It's been 13 years of me running this business, 14th this year. My family has not questioned me once on any decision that I've made. They do not interfere. Like, this is my business that I'm running since day one, by the way. If I want to take it to Turkey, I want to take it to Singapore, I want to do London, I want to open another store, I want to collaborate, I want to spend 50 lakhs somewhere. Not a question. They don't even interfere. My balance sheets are not checked. My dad checks it, of course, because he wants to kind of see whether everything's okay or not, just to kind of like, not in a very interrogative manner, but in a way like, let me sort it out for you and let me kind of pay your taxes on time because I'm busy dreaming. But in a way that you dream on, and and another beauty is that I've been married to a very beautiful man also. My husband also is a startup founder. He owns a brand called
Nice.
Wellbeing Nutrition. And every single day, instead of me being like, I just want to chill a little bit, and be like, get your ass to work now. And he's like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not da 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 da. And and like after a woman gets married, most women are kind of like taking care of the house as well, and they're taking care of the family and their in-laws. And my in-laws and my husband is like, they're literally like, you go run the world, everything will be managed. I am traveling literally 2 weeks a month. I'm on the
Wow.
go 2 weeks a month. My husband's traveling 2 weeks a month. We're both sort of like trying to coordinate our time zones. I mean, our times as we can. But guys, never a question. Literally
Palak,
never a thing. And that's beautiful, I think. Sorry.
Yeah.
amazing. That's good. Finally, your dad won, right?
My
Finally, he got you married.
I won. I fought with my dad, by the way, for this
All right.
guy.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Palak, you mentioned before there's thousands of artisans behind the actually making this happen. So you're not just creating an amazing brand, also helping a huge community. So tell us a little bit about that.
You know, uh, so I work with almost 10,000 artisans, and they've worked with my dad, my grandfather, my great grandfather. It's like generational old, right? So, like, let's example, their kids come into business, and then their kids come into business. And over the years, their kids stopped coming into the business, right? Because saris
Mm.
had started being treated like, there's one of those
Yeah.
products which is not sexy and which is not desirable, not aspirational. And it started being looked upon as something that was not a business that you wanted to be in, right? Because no young
Yeah.
generation was coming into that business. Up until now, like many young generations are not coming to the business of saris, because even my own brother, he looks at it as like, it's a very like traditional way of working. I want to do something in finance, I want to do something in this. But it's all about, I think, having faith in what you do. But regardless of that, is that I think with what I am trying to do, even with my community, is of course fair pay is one bit of it, right? But I can give you $10,000 a year, a month, right? And if you're doing something that you don't like, you will eventually leave it if you don't see a future in it, right? And I feel like with Ekaya, we're trying to break the monotony of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I'm trying to show the weaver and the next generation that this is a desirable business, that this business has potential, this business has a future, this business can be sold internationally, this product can be sold anywhere in the world. And hence I'm convincing the next generation to kind of walk into this father's business and be like, you know what, dad, I will show you that it's possible. And hence that whole revolutionary shift, the cultural shift that I'm talking about, is that I want weavers to continue being in the business and to not let this trade die by any chance.
And I want to go to kind of a revolution, which is happening in all industries, which is sustainability. And I saw that you guys you launched something called Second Chance, which is where you can
Wow. You've done your
resell, and
research.
we always do here at the Quest for Success.
I love it.
But you guys launched Second Chance, which like helps resell and repair the saris that you guys sell. How important do you think, this kind of circular economy and sustainability for you guys moving forward?
I think it's very important. I'll tell you why, because again, it comes from a very different mindset from me. You know how you have thrift shops in the US and in everywhere around the world. Like, you
Yeah.
have your Gallianos and your Dior's being sold, and we bought over and over again and like stuff like that. I said, yeah, I mean, I always look at our craft as also a timeless couture piece. And why must our grandmother's saris or grandmother's saris all be just kept in a wardrobe and not be given to access to people who genuinely want to wear it? And
Yeah.
why can't we position it as luxury items that deserve a second chance? And hence came my proposition of second chance. And of course, I also feel like many people, like saris in the women's mindset is something that like they have enough of, and they're like, you know what, we're done, we can't buy more. But I'm like, here, I said, you know what, you haven't worn it, give it to me. I'll sell it at a lower price to somebody who really wants it so that you can buy something that you want. Let's reshuffle your wardrobe. And why the hell can't we do that?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to get at with second chance. It's like, give your wardrobe a second chance, give yourself a second chance, give my clothes a second chance, give the Indian textile industry a second chance to be looked at in a very different way.
Yeah. I suppose one aspect which kind of goes back to what you were saying before, this is just purely out of curiosity. How do you balance that with, as you said before, when your dad suggested giving a discount, how do you kind of balance keeping that strong brand perception, but still offering that second hand service?
Because I mean, like, it's only a portion of it, right? It's only like 5% of it.
Yeah.
There's like a little rack that we try and curate, and which has a second chance tag on it that you can buy it. But like, it's not my entire store. Also, like, I'm like, if a Dior can do it, if an Hermes can do it,
Yeah.
it's really how you tell the story, right? It's really how you explain to the customer what they're doing and what they're buying.
Oh, I love it.
So, how do you see your Ekaya brand in the future, Palak?
I see it in Paris. I see
Yeah.
it in on Moda Operandi. I see it in like a Net-a-Porter. I see it being worn by people across all ages. I see it being worn across all cultures, all continents, and I see it becoming the next kimono of the world.
All right. So, how do you want to remember as Palak in the one day in about 50 years' time?
I want to be known as a sari lady, the girl who changed the way the saris was worn.
They'll
Truly,
do
like,
Harvard case studies about you.
I hope so, Dylan. I really hope so. I don't want to be known as the Ekaya girl. I want to be known as a girl who changed the way you look and wear a sari. I want to
Remember,
change. I want to change
yeah.
the whole industry. I want to change the way people look at it.
Remember, we did a case study at Harvard, and we similar to what you're doing. Because your business is not just about creating a brand; you're creating a sustainable. The whole in like the whole industry. Not just industry. Beyond that, community. You're growing a community together, and impact that you're creating is amazing, right? So, do you ever think of that
You know,
that way?
I do. I know that the impact that I'm creating, but I don't think it's in my head. It's as big as it is. In my head, it's just like, oh, I'm having fun while doing it. But I don't know how big the brand is, to be honest. If you really ask me, and it's not coming from a place of like humility, but I genuinely think I have a long way to go. And I don't think that I've kind of made it, and I don't think I'm on top of my game, and I do not think that I'm the brand in the country yet. I have a long way to go.
And I suppose in your years of accidental entrepreneurship, what do you think is the one biggest takeaway that you have that you can share with other people?
I think just the belief in what you're doing, right? I think if you believe it, you can move mountains, and it's true. I think it's truly if you believe it, and if you don't believe it, and also like something that find your own voice. Like I remember, someone told me, one of my collaborators had told me something really nice, which has stuck around with me for a long time. She said, they can be better than you, they can be worse than you, but they can never be you,
Mm-hmm. Nice
right?
one.
Just find who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And the day you find who you are, you won the game.
So, Palak, what exactly? Not the sari lady, but just Palak. What do you want to be, and how do you see yourself?
Huh. I don't know. I feel like my identity is my business at this point in time. I am who I am. Like literally, if I were not doing this, I don't know what I would be. But I think I just want to have a lot of fun while doing whatever I'm doing. I want to have fun with life. I want to have fun living. I want to do what makes me happy, and this truly makes me very happy. Uh,
Yeah.
and all while doing it with a lot of kindness. And I think balance, most importantly. Yeah, I think it's a very key thing in my life, right? That I want to balance my family life at the same time. I want to balance my personal life at the same time, and I want to be doing well. It's not one at the cost of the other. Um, on days when it's required for me to be at home, I'm okay to be at home. I'm not a feminist. I'm not one that who's going to fight with my partner and be like, "You get to go to work and I get to be at home." No, if it's required, I'll do it, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Well, Palak, I suppose to kind of wrap this conversation up, looking back on your journey, do you feel successful given that your definition of success was largely around impact?
Let's just say I do not feel not successful.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I still have a long way to go. But at the same time, I don't feel defeated. I don't
Yeah.
feel like a failure. I feel I am successful as in I'm getting there, definitely. But am I successful is like the end destination, right? And I don't think I've reached my end destination yet.
Yeah. You're on the right track though.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, Palak, this has been an actually incredible conversation. I wasn't
Thank you.
sure, what I would learn about fashion. It's not really my area of expertise, but it's
Same.
been such an insightful conversation. I'm really glad that we got to sit down. But before we wrap up, I've jotted down a few core traits which I think have been critical to your what I would say is quite a successful life, and I'd like to share them with you. The first one I think is definitely your ironclad self-belief, or like going out and forging your own path. And it was kind of opposite to your dad. You wanted to do your own thing. You wanted to become your own person. And I think in that kind of journey of trying to find yourself, you developed this self-belief. Whether it was your time abroad, overseas, or at boarding school, just having that time to forge your own path, I think, is what has kind of helped develop your self-belief, which gives you that kind of tenacity, I suppose, which is the next one I have. Tenacity to go out and really make your dreams come true. Going in and working with these, international brands and really trying to put your culture on show. I think that tenacity to make things happen is another one of your core traits. The next one I've got is you're very grounded. You as much as you've become successful now, you still keep your roots. You said, I'm still a small town girl at heart, and I think that's really important because it gives you something to look back on. It gives you a baseline to look back on and go, okay, I started here and now I'm here, and it just keeps you grounded and humble, I suppose, throughout the journey. And then the last one I've got is you're very value driven. You know the value that what you're selling, the value of it, and you're trying to build awareness and take it to the international market and showcase what it is that you do. And I think that's such an amazing cause, and I'm really glad that we got to sit down and have this conversation.
And Palak, what Dylan said, to add to that list, you're very authentic. Your brand is you. It's pretty much the Palak is Palak. What you see, what you get, and that you reflect that through your brand. It's amazing. And I feel like we are talking to the next big brand coming up. So,
I hope so. I hope so. I'm feeling
so
so. I'm feeling very awkward hearing all these things, but and I'm flattered. Thank you.
yeah, one day we look back and maybe a few years back, oh wow, remember we talked to Palak, like Ekaya.
No,
That's what we like to see.
I really hope
Yeah,
Ekaya ends up being a part of every wedding that you go to. And I hope it's a part
amazing.
of your wedding jam for your daughter's
Sure,
wedding.
we love to.
And Palak, before we go, if people want to find out a bit more about Akaya, where can they find some more information?
They can go to my website, ekaya.in. My Instagram's very active, Ekaya Banaras. My own page, if in case they want to come and see a little bit of a glimpse of my chaotic life, they can. And yeah, we have stores in five cities across India, two in New Delhi, one in Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, and Mumbai.
Awesome.
And let's hope soon we're on international websites as well.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it, and we'll put the
Amazing.
comments down in the show notes below. And Palak, thank you so much for this conversation. And for our listeners, if you've gotten something out of today's episode, it would do us a massive favor if you could go and like and subscribe and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this on right now. And you can see all of our inspiring content over on our website, thequestforsuccesspodcast.com. And with that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.